Hello and welcome, Exiles, to the Day 3 update to the Inquisitor. Basically, it's a Spark Inquisitor now. I haven't gone back to Crackly Lance. I don't know if I want to. I've been enjoying Spark, and I've been enjoying kind of learning it. I'm new to it, and part of the min-maxing I've been trying to figure out is both getting skill effect duration and projectile speed to kind of min-max into actually getting single target in Spark. The way Spark works is it has a set duration of 2 seconds, and it can hit the boss or an enemy, the same enemy, in every 0.66 seconds. So within the 2-second time frame, Spark can potentially hit an enemy 3 times. If you increase the duration, say like we have here by using increased duration as a support link, as well as I have increased duration anointed. Technically, we're going to get this to about 100% duration, which means that we'll have like a 4-second duration. So we could potentially hit the boss 6 times, which would be basically 6 times the DPS per every cast. But realistically, that's not always going to happen. The boss arenas can be large, which means if you throw out a spark, the sparks might go really far away, and then if they come back, they might not hit the boss. Stuff like that. It gets kind of weird, kind of funky. So moral of the story is, if you're in a closed arena, the DPS feels really solid. When you're in a big open arena, like Cirrus, for example, is the worst because his arena is absolutely massive. Your DPS is a sixth, basically, of what it would be, because those projectiles pretty much never come back to hit Cirrus again for a second hit. So, moral of the story is, I have sacrificed some EHP to try to invest into projectile speed and aerodynamics, a couple aerodynamics to make it so clear still feels fine without pierce support. And then we also picked up Spell Echo. I dropped Crit Multi. I don't know if that's the right play, but I liked having some more sparks on the field, so I picked up a Spell Echo, trying it out, gonna see how it feels. So that's pretty much the main change we did in terms of DPS to try to increase it. We've invested more into projectile speed. I've also invested into projectile speed on my amulet. I do want to end up crafting this a little bit more, try to get life or the veiled projectile speed craft. I think it should be fairly straightforward to do, so I might end up trying to min-max this amulet a little bit more. And so, moral of the story is, we're down on life. We're going to make some gear upgrades. We're eventually going to swap to Crown of the Inward Eye when it gets to a reasonable price, like 10C or something. That'll take us up a couple hundred HP and a couple hundred ES. We'll get closer to 5K and 2K. Get life on our amulet. We'll be like 5.2K, 2.1K, something like that. We'll still have a really good EHP pool and still be quite tanky. Not to mention, we've also increased our max res because, thanks to the new mechanics in crafting armor, is you can get max res on your chest. Now, ideally, you want to roll for max cold res because you can get +3 max cold res, and with Meld into the Flesh, it's going to give you the additional max fire res and max lightning any res. So max all res isn't necessarily better than +3 max cold res would be, because +3 max cold res would be, we'd be at 90 max all res right now. We also got 1 max res on our gloves. You can potentially get this to +2 if you do some Orb of Conflict gambling. That's how I got the +2 max res on here, but you know, that's kind of just if you want to invest a little bit more. Point is, you can continue to invest into these new Exarch implicits to get your max res all the way to 90 and cap it out. Eventually, you know, if I wanted to end up min-maxing this gear more than just throwing just a few C here and there at it, I would probably go for +3 max cold res and +2 max cold res here, which would allow me to no longer need a 23 period device to hit 90 max all res, and I still might be able to avoid this by potentially getting something like an AoE gems craft on my gloves here, and then maybe something like a plus level gem craft on our amulet. That's like if you're super min-maxing, if you really care about it. I'm probably not going to take the character that far because I do have some additional builds I have in mind to make in the future, and I don't want to just spend all my currency here. I'd rather keep this starter build still in the low budget range, so it seems super affordable, and you can kind of see where this build gets with just, I don't know, a mid-level investment. I'm thinking 5x and under, basically, is what I'm thinking. Now, that is going to depend greatly on the prices of things like Melody in the Flesh, things like Aegis Aurora, and that's pretty much it. Those are the main 2 mandatory uniques. I guess Nebulous, but Nebulous, if it gets expensive, you can just go with a Rare Scepter. And Nebulous isn't going to be that much better than a Rare Scepter, given we're not doing like Call of the Brotherhood shenanigans, so we're not double benefiting from the damage increase to cold and lightning. We're just mostly benefiting from the increase to lightning damage. That's another thing I switched today, is I added in a Nebulous. So those are the main gear switches I did today. Oh, and I dropped the Death Rush because we got an Onslaught on kill craft that we could craft on a prefix as boots. So, those are the big changes we made for the character today. And for our showcase, we're going to do a hidden. I have gone ahead and I have done the Formed, the Twisted, the Forgotten, and the Elder Slayers. I have to admit, Elder Slayers were harder than I thought. Drox gets surprisingly annoying with his basically damage reduction things he keeps putting down. They might be my new top pick for number 2 hardest fight. I'm not sure. We'll see how Hidden goes right now. Hidden was always my number 2 pick for hardest fight in the game after Feared, but maybe Elder Slayers I might end up thinking is more harder depending on the mods, or not more harder depending on the mods you get. But we're going to do a Ulnatul's one, or a Hidden one, not Ulnatul, but it is a 77 quant, AoE, damage, gain fizz as. Should be a pretty dangerous arena. They should be able to kill me here. So there is a decent amount of risk on the line. So this will be the showcase for today. Kind of showcase, hey, we're still at a pretty low, relatively early budget in the character. We kept to pretty low investment clusters of doing like Prismatic Heart on the Travel Notable, and that's all I was going for. I wasn't going for anything fancy. And then going for some projectile clusters where I just alt spammed for aerodynamics, and then I was just trying to regal into a node like Repeater or like Streamlined, which is a pretty common regal. If you hit a suffix, you can do a suffix to prefix, and there's a good chance you'll get one of these notables, because that's what I did. Okay, so trying to remember who we prioritize killing. I honestly kind of am scared of Ulnatul with the Gain Fizz's Fire mod, but we'll just see. We'll just see what happens. Okay, well, let's go for the classic. Is this dangerous to me? Because, like, I know I have Aegis, but I just Temporified from Toll in previous times when he's done massive damage to me. No, we can't quite tank it. We do not have a strong enough Aegis to tank the Creeping Frost, it appears. Still does a bit too much damage for us to completely tank it. This is like a baby version of Aegis compared to what we did last league with Guardian. We had a much higher armor count, so our recover on block would be a significantly larger amount. So let's get Toll off the field real quick. Now, actually, now that I remember this, Ulnatul can be quite bad for the any build that's a projectile build, because his like things he puts down, those like wood totems or whatever, I don't know, not bone totems maybe, I don't know, the little spiky things he puts on the ground, those like absorb our projectiles, I think. I remember having issues with, like, I couldn't shoot around those in previous times, and they did cause problems for me in the past. I think that was when I was doing like an instacker. It was a super big pain because I wasn't using Pierce in the build. I don't know, I just remember it was being a pain, but it didn't seem like this ended up being too bad. So I'm really happy with this, really. It's, you know, a 70 quant, and this is an 85 level 1. I have the passive. Oh, here, let me show you. I have the passive that makes these arenas harder because it gives +2 levels to them. So those were some pretty tanky dudes, some pretty tough guys with 70 quant, and we're still able to do it convincingly, I would say. So moral of the story is, I'm happy with where this character's at. Spark might not be the best skill to use. I'm not really too convinced it necessarily is. I think there could be maybe better skills, and maybe Stormburst. Rocket Lance, I think you could get a good single target on it. It just feels so awkward to clear, so I don't think I like it. Maybe Tendrils could be good, but the clear would be awkward as well. Stuff like that. You kind of have to pick and choose what skills you want to use. Obviously, Spark works well in clearing, and then okay in bosses. The bigger the arena, like this is a pretty big arena, and a lot of the endgame bosses, they do have pretty large arenas. It starts to really basically make your DPS be a lot lower because you aren't getting those additional hits because the Spark will run away from your character and just fizzle out, right? So, overall, I'm pretty happy with this character is at. I'm probably not going to invest too much more into this character. I'm probably just going to farm endgame content because it's good enough to do it and just start storing up currency and start farming pieces for the build I have planned next because I'm really excited about it. I'll probably do a little bit more fine tuning, and then eventually I want to say I will put out a full guide. I might do one more update if I decide to do just a couple more changes, couple more fine-tuning things, maybe get a couple levels, stuff like that. But for the most part, I'm pretty happy with the state of this character right now. It can do the endgame content, it's tanky, it's pretty relaxing to play, it's not perfect, you know, it can still die to stuff, it doesn't have the greatest DPS, you know, it's still only, I don't know. It really just depends on the arena you're in. If you're in a good arena, it's probably around 3 million. If you're in a bad arena, it's probably around like 1 million, you know, depending on like if you're actually getting those additional hits from Spark or not. And really that could just be, okay, you just use a different skill instead of Spark when you're in a really big arena and you'll be fine, because there are other skills like ball lightning, for example, you could use because you're investing into the projectile damage. You could just do like a ball lightning swap, something like that could work probably fine. You know, it's up to you really what you want to end up doing with the character, but as of right now, I'm pretty happy with it. I definitely can recommend how well it's gone for in terms of power levels for just a pretty early gearing, mostly just going for rares and stuff like that. I'm hoping the big ticket item right now is Aegis Aurora. It's the most expensive item in the build. I'm hoping this goes down in price. Like usually Aegis Aurora continues to decrease in price over the course of the league, but so far it hasn't shown much volatility. It's holding at like 2x or whatever pretty steadily. So I'm hoping this starts to go down so it makes the build more affordable for you guys if you want to follow it. So anyways, that's the moral of the story of where the character's at, how it's doing. Hopefully you enjoy this update. As always, thank you for watching. Take care, Exiles.